The Washington Wizards are playing chess, not checkers. After the original details of the Bradley Beal trade came out, everybody called the Wizards the losers of the trade. But once the full trade came out, and after they traded for Jordan Poole, this team has a very bright future, headlined by Jordan Poole. First, they traded Bradley Beal, Isaiah Todd, and Jordan Goodwin to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, 6 second-round picks, and 4 first-round pick swaps. So what does a pick swap mean? That means for the years which they traded a pick swap, the Wizards will get the better of the 2 picks. So if the Suns have a better pick than the Wizards every single one of those 4 years, the Wizards will just automatically trade with the Suns. However, if the Wizards have the higher pick, they'll just keep their pick. In addition, the 6 second-round picks from the Suns means the Wizards will have plenty of chances to get some steals in the draft and some talent which goes under the radar, which can help and become rotational players in their rebuilding cycle. Next, let's move on to the Kristaps Porzingis and Jordan Poole trades. In a 3-team deal between the Grizzlies, Celtics, and Wizards, the Wizards traded away Porzingis, but in return got back starting caliber point guard Tyus Jones, Mike Muscala, Danilo Gallinari, and the 35th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft. At this point, the Wizards still had Chris Paul, and people were wondering how that's going to work, whether he's actually going to suit up for Washington, or whether they're going to have a buyout, or whether they're going to trade him and see what they can get back. What they did was they actually traded him for a massive return. The Warriors got the point guard, Chris Paul, but the Wizards got Jordan Poole, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ryan Rollins, 1 first-round pick, and a second-round pick. I mean, me personally, I didn't think Chris Paul was going to have this much value. Jordan Poole is still very young, and while his shot selection is still suspect at times, he can definitely improve, and I think Washington will be the space where he can get that creative freedom, and he won't be seen in Steph or Clay's shadow, and he has access to run the team's full offense, so I think he can develop into one of the league's best scorers, and he has shown that potential already. Patrick Baldwin Jr. and Ryan Rollins are also both very young. Patrick Baldwin Jr. was selected with a late first-round pick by the Warriors last year, but he never got much playing time. And we know his potential from his time in high school, and even though he didn't have the best college career, I think he still has some of that potential in him, and so they get another young player, Patrick Baldwin Jr. Same with Ryan Rollins, he was a two-way guy with the Warriors. It's just more young talent to unlock and potentially play around with. And a first-round pick and a second-round pick. The more assets you get in return for a guy like Chris Paul, who's 38, is insane. A first-round pick in like 2030, the Warriors are not going to be the best team in the league by then. The Wizards will just accumulate more draft capital and more talent when that time comes, and they'll be looking to become a contender. I mentioned the Wizards got the 35th pick in yesterday night's draft, which was used to draft Julian Phillips. Then right away, they traded Phillips for 2 future second-round picks. So again, they're getting more talent and more draft capital, which they can use later on in their rebuilding cycle. If we combine all their trades into one and we look at who the team got overall, they traded Bradley Beal, who was on a supermax $250 million over 5 years contract, and Kristaps Porzingis, who has a $36 million player option. And in return, they got Jordan Poole, who has 3 years left on his contract, Tyus Jones, who's a very good starting point guard, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and Ryan Rollins, who are both very young and can develop, Landry Shamet, who's been in the league for 5-6 years and he's an established role player, 1 first-round pick, 9 second-round picks, and 4 first-round pick swaps. And in the draft, the Wizards did a great job as well. They took Jarris Walker, but ultimately traded him with Bilal Coulibaly and got 2 future second-round picks. And by taking Coulibaly, they get the Frenchman, who is a long-term project who fits their timeline. Bilal Coulibaly is 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan. Fun fact, he was actually teammates with Victor Wembanyama this past season. But Coulibaly needs some patience to develop into the franchise cornerstone Wizards fans are expecting. He's only 18 years old and has a lanky frame and raw ability, but he's still considered a project because of how his shooting is limited to today's three-point heavy basketball game. I think if they instill the right type of mentors, coaching, development, and confidence in the young player, he could be a star for the Wizards. He's a great defender, and he's going to be a big part of their contending window in the next 5 or 6 years once they get there. But for now, the team is going to be led by Jordan Poole and Deni Avdija. Avdija, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. He hasn't had a true breakout season yet, but this might be the year. Poole, like I mentioned, is a great scorer, but he still needs to improve on overall shot IQ and just decision making in general. But with the right type of experience here in Washington, Poole could turn into one of the league's best and most efficient scorers. Overall, I think the future for Washington is bright. They have guys like Poole, Avdia, but also guys like Coulibaly who will develop as time progresses. But one thing that's very important for Washington is they have to hit on the draft. They have so many second round picks, they have that first round pick, and they have 4 pick swaps with the Suns. And the Suns have a lot of older players, and I personally think they won't be as good as they are right now when it comes to 2027 or whatever. And when you take advantage of these picks and they're going to be lottery picks or even picks right outside the lottery, you have to hit. And once you hit on these draft picks, you get more young players or even sometimes NBA ready players right away who can come and help your team win and be successful in the playoffs around 2030 or so. But the Wizards have a bright future. It's just in their hands if they make the right or wrong choices with their precious draft picks. Hope you guys enjoyed, and that's today's video on how the Washington Wizards finessed the entire league and how they have a very successful rebuilding team now and they're built for the future. Bye and thank you.